Padres Hot Tub, everybody. Greg Elsten, Chris Reed, Raphie Cantor. We are back here with you. It is October 23rd, and the Padres still have a manager. I mean,
moving forward.
As somebody very angrily said to me on Twitter in all caps earlier today, like, what are you talking about? It's an interview. People have interviews all the time.
Might be the same jackoff I argued with on Reddit. You can go to the Padres subreddit for that hot content.
So Bob Melvin's about to be the Giants manager. This whole charade at the end of the season has been exposed as exactly that, a charade for the camera to get everyone quiet for a week while nothing was fixed between AJ Preller and Bob Melvin. They were just waiting for the phone to ring. The phone rang, and Bo Mel is on his way out, or he's the top candidate, along with 4 internal Giants coaches out of their 27-person staff, which I'm sure is part of when you sign up for the coaching pyramid at the Giants. It's like, if you're one of the top 4 performers out of 27, you automatically get interviewed for the next potential job. So we're going to talk about it all. We're going to dig into it in every variation that we can think of, and we're probably going to get mad at least at AJ Preller once or twice. All of that coming up. Couple of very quick housekeepings. Our YouTube continues to run. We had a new Pods Above replacement last week and a new Pods Above replacement YouTube video, Raphie, coming out later this week.
Yeah, hopefully going to come out on Wednesday, depending on how fast I can edit it. We are going to dive into just how unclutch the San Diego Padres were on the scheme of history, going, to steal something that Letters to AJ said in their many articles, dating back to the Bronze Age. We're going to look at all of the baseball teams of time and talk about whether or not this team qualifies as the most unclutch. The answer might surprise you. I will leave it at that. Well, Craig is currently muted, but he's very...
You know why? Let me just tell you why. Let me tell you why. Because, and it's so bad, but I had to steal the iPad because my son is home today, and if I left the iPad outside, he'd just play for 3 hours and then tell me later that he didn't play for 3 hours. So I had to tuck it in here. But in doing so, all of a sudden, he's now getting calls from his other buddies who are home.
Where you at, bro? Asking
him to play. And so it was ringing over and over. And I was trying to reach over and figure out how to mute it. And so I muted myself so that you didn't hear leap 100 times. So
this is great content.
Feel free to edit every single aspect of this.
It's staying in. It's
right
staying
now.
in.
Parenting tactics.
Look,
I love
Rafe,
it.
I told you guys when we started, lo-fi, okay? I didn't say tight and highly produced. I said this is a lo-fi show that's about fun and funny and friends and Padres. And Conan wants to play Roblox, and he can't because James is not available right now. We persevere nonetheless. So, yeah, new Pods Above replacement coming. Please, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, over 900 subscribers now, heading towards 1,000. Content continues throughout the year, and including this show. We're on YouTube. You could have seen me, if you're listening, hold up the iPad exasperated. that could have been a thing. You missed it. You missed the moment. You can go back and find it on the YouTube video. Best way to support this show is by supporting our Patreon, patreon.com/Padres Hot Tub. Once again, the community exists 365. How did I find out about the Bob Melvin stuff? I got Discord notifications that let me know our Discord is worth the price of entry on its own. NBA Fantasy is getting started this week in our Padres Hot Tub Discord and in our community. That'll be the fourth active league. There's an active football league, hockey league, NBA, and Survivor. In addition to the 4 baseball fantasy leagues that run during the regular season, 2 of our 4 championship blankets have been delivered. The other 2, I do need your addresses. Please turn them in. And this Thursday at 5 o'clock, we're having a Patreon patrons-only watch party of the 1989 Cameron Crowe classic, Say Anything, a movie that absolutely shaped my childhood, to be sure. But your guys' relationship with it is a lot different than mine, so it should be a lot of fun. We're going to all click play together Thursday, and then we're going to talk about it. We're going to have a show about it for our patrons. So those are the kind of fun things we do. We're going to all go see Tim Capello at the Till 2 Club on December 22nd. I mean, you're signed in, guys. You guys are both in for this, right? Tim Capello. I felt like this was conjured out of my imagination, and it showed up. I'm like, is the Facebook algorithm this powerful that, like, I if I look up the Lost Boys theme on YouTube 50 times, he gets booked at the Till 2 Club? Like, is that how it works?
Potentially. Why not? Like, somebody's hitting the SEO search results really hard at Till 2. They're like, oh, yeah, man, the song's hot in the region.
This is where marketing research, Raphie, can go horribly wrong. There's sometimes too much data, and there is signal, and there is noise. There's a lot of noise coming out of La Mesa, and it sounds like a brassy saxophone.
Well lubricated by body oils.
Indeed. Those oils keep the keys a-clacking. So, once again, if you didn't see Raphie's cringe look, that is another reason to sign
body
up for YouTube.
oils was too, because it's like, where are the oil? Is it like external oils he's placing on himself, or is it oils that his body is producing?
No,
both.
like a suntan oil. But
all
then
of
after
them.
you get, maybe.
No,
I
it's
mean,
once they
Chris
start
is-
merging and melding, it's just
That's when the
everywhere.
magic happens.
That's how music. Talk to any musician, they know.
I'm literally expecting this dude to play his one song on stage, stop, put down the sax, look out and go like, hey, do you guys want to hear about the time I toured with Tina Turner? Like, you want to hear some stories now?
I saw Twisted Sister do this rehearsal show once. They were playing a show at the downtown Las Vegas thing, and they needed a tune-up. And they played We're Not Gonna Take It first. Then they played like 4 other songs. And then they played We're Not Gonna Take It again. And it was fine. It was great.
He's going to play those 3 songs on the back of the cassette that he's always played somebody when he got them weed back in the 90s. Like, here, I'll sell you this 8th, but first, let me play you these songs I've been working on really hard. I think you're going to enjoy them. After the 4th song, he's just going to go, do one of you guys have a podcast? Somebody out there in the audience, is somebody, I feel a movement in the force. Anyways, we've wrung all of the comedy out of that. Possible. Point being, fun things happen. Patreon.com/Padres Hot Tub if you can't tell. Oh my God. I think I just cost us 50 people. All right. No more dancing about it, boys. It's time to rip the Band-Aid off and talk about the only topic in Padres. We were going to do a different show this week, okay? We were going to talk about the rotation. We did options last week. We've got individual player reviews coming. We have content planned for the winter in between Preller's big moves. But what we got this week was the end. And please, one of you guys, both of you guys, tell me I'm wrong. My take when I saw the stories come out in The Athletic, UT, and everywhere else the last 2 days that Bob Melvin has been granted permission to interview with the San Francisco Giants, that the Giants requested and the Padres granted permission. My feeling was that this was the end of a 3-week gaslighting.
Yes.
That took place from the Padres to their fan base, where they were like, everything's fine. How dare you? Anonymous sources. We put no credibility in these anonymous sources, poo-pooing the work of Dennis Lin and Kevin Acee, who were right. They were right. They were correct. People said Darren Smith, not credible. He was right. They were right. Oh, Melvin hasn't taken the job yet. Okay. Hopefully you're playing this on like Friday and it's over. Or they'll announce it after the World Series, because that's what you're supposed to do, is you're supposed to announce it after the World Series. But anyone who thinks that a team requests permission from another team to hire away their manager in the division, and then that team grants it, that the deal isn't done, that person is crazy. The deal is done. The deal was done. The deal was done the day Gabe Kapler was fired. Okay? The deal is done. And the Padres just bullshitted us for 3 weeks, basically to get the heat off. To
And
say
to
that
save
it's
some
okay.
cash.
Right. Hey,
Yeah.
AJ Preller sticking around is fine because our leadership is together. Peter Seidler said the leadership team will stay together. And then the leadership team appeared. It was Preller by himself. Melvin's traveling. He can't make it. He'll leave it. But then he gave an interview to Bernie Wilson. Said he was looking forward to the new season. Did he specifically say with us?
He did. He did.
Okay, he didn't just say I'm looking forward to the new season.
Here's the quote. I'm looking forward to having a much better year than we had this year. Well, I guess he didn't say.
What do you know?
Yeah.
Doesn't say Padres in there anywhere. So this was a gaslighting. This was the team just honestly, almost childishly just trying to avoid negative heat, avoid more ticket cancellations by letting a thing play out that they knew was going to play out because Melvin was gone, because Preller and Melvin were unfixable. They didn't fix it in a Monday meeting. All of that was BS. The way they fixed it was, oh, so you want to go, huh? Yeah, I want to go. Okay, cool. You're gone. Thanks for nothing. See you later. See you never. See you next year across the dugout. Okay, cool. Peace out. That was the meeting. Meeting over.
Yeah, we have
Conan wants to play again. Sorry, I got.
Is that what that is? Okay. We have a group text chat, the three of us, and I was in the middle of triple bogeying the 4th hole on the golf course I was playing yesterday when I got a text from Chris that said, "Guess we're not talking about the starting rotation tomorrow." And I swear I didn't even see any other push notifications. I was like, "Oh, Melvin's gone." Like there was just like because there could only be one thing. To be honest, us thinking that anything else was going on when they did that press conference and Melvin wasn't on the Zoom. It's a fucking Zoom. It's not even like he needed to be at 19 Tony Gwynn Drive. He could have just like hopped on his phone and been like, "Hey guys, yeah, me and AJ are cool, blah, blah, blah. Like have a great winter. See you guys in February. Ha 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 ha." He couldn't even do that because he was gone. He's gone already.
He was gone.
And, now we're getting the articles about who is going to replace Bob Melvin. The list is less than inspiring. Basically a dealer's choice between Ryan Flaherty or Mike Schilt. They're throwing in, your Will Venables and your Joe Espadas and the other, bench coaches of playoff teams that could come in. But we're an unserious organization. There's just no other way to think about this. We are completely and utterly unserious. And basically my rule of thumb going forward is anything AJ Preller says, I'm going to assume the opposite is true. Genuinely. Because, not to get too deep into childhood stuff, but anytime I'm gaslit like this, I have a very strong and visceral reaction, to being taken, taken for a ride like this. And to our faces, to everyone. That's what he did. He lied to you because he thought it wasn't that you weren't worth telling the truth. That's what it was. That's truly what it was. Because he thought he could get away with it. And guess what? He's going to. He's going to, because Peter Seidler's health is a complete and total question mark. And it is clear that no one is at the wheel with him gone. Maybe there are Seidler equity partner peoples in there. Who knows how much of a thumb Eric Grupner has on the scale at this point. But there is absolutely no direction from this organization right now. And AJ Preller is on track to hire his 5th manager?
If you want to count Pat Murphy, yeah.
No, okay. If we're counting interims, it's actually his 6th because remember there was a Rod Barajas moment in there for a few weeks. So
Who could
so
ever forget the Barajas era?
fourth full-time manager or sixth manager overall, and any sort of reflection, any sort of sense of hindsight.
Why would there be?
Yeah.
I think gaslighting comes from more of a place of competence than they've shown. I really don't know what other choice they have after the end of the season. What other alternate action they could take besides just firing Bob Melvin, which would cost this team money right now at a time when they're talking about how they're strapped for money and the debt is too great. They're looking in every couch cushion for change. So they don't want to fire him because that puts money into Bob Melvin's pocket. If they thought this was a reasonable alternative, which they did the second Gabe Kapler got fired, I don't know what else they do besides just try to buy time. And AJ Preller, when he talks like a lawyer or a politician who's afraid of saying something that's going to be held against him on the record later. That's what every quote he's given us the past 4 months has seemed like. And I think it just speaks to dysfunction or incompetence more than it speaks to an actual intent to deceive.
Sorry,
go
Chris.
ahead.
I just have to say there is
Conversation,
something
baby.
that has already been said on this podcast that Craig said a few minutes ago. They could have just said, we handle everything after the World Series. We handle everything after the World Series. And while the writing would have been on the wall when they said that, at least they wouldn't have fucking lied to us. Because that's the part that pisses me off.
We were also demanding accountability and something to be said from ownership and from the team for a month and a half. So we can't have it always every single time. I hate to fucking be the advocate for the Padres front office. That is not my intention. I don't see what they could have done differently considering how time works and how the Major League Baseball postseason calendar functions.
Because he's so loyally, you could have said, Bob Melvin is our manager.
Which they
and
did.
That's it.
He's moving forward.
No, he said in 2024. They were specific.
No, AJ Preller in his press conference, in that big Zoom meeting, he said he is our manager moving forward. That is, to me, not a red flag, but it's a yellow flag. He did not explicitly say Bob manager is our manager in 2024. He said moving forward. And that's why AJ Preller, you can't take anything he says at your interpretation of it unless it's directly factual. Bob Melvin is the one that said, I'm looking forward to spring training and walking back into that clubhouse. They're both in this dance of dysfunction, right? And it's a broken relationship. We may have, that's the lies in saying, no, we're fine. We don't talk. Well, we talk several times a day. And maybe middle finger emojis back at each other, but we're talking.
Yeah.
You know what, Chris? Sorry, Rafe. I just want to say you're making a really good point. I think you're making a really, really solid point that's good for people, including us who are reacting to this, to remember, which is that on some corporate level, there were handcuffs here, right?
Yeah.
If they knew on the day of, the Monday after the season was over, that Bob Melvin was 100% not going to return to the San Diego Padres, but he was 95% going to go be the Giants manager. But there's a procedure that has to take place in the halls of justice of MLB to get to a managerial interview, right? There has to be a series of interviews. There has to be a posting, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then there has to be the procedure of the Giants asking permission, the Padres granting permission. Okay, someone like Preller, hey, well, what if we can get a 28th round draft pick for Bob Melvin? What if we can get $50,000 in draft slot allocation money for Bob Melvin? Any little edge that he thinks he could get in the transaction, he wouldn't want to corrupt that by putting it into the public sphere that the transaction was going to take place. So of course he was going to sit on that information, and it would only come out when it came out down the road, but you're going to have this press conference today, so we're going to say this thing today. Okay, like, I'm a person who has, in my profession, had to think about the things you have to say at a press conference when there's something that you don't want to say. And I mean, honestly, when you said it, Chris, a lot of it does make sense. A lot of it checks out. So it is, but Raphie, I still feel gaslit. I feel like the gaslighting ended. But I guess there were some disgusting corporate reasons why it makes sense.
From ownership when they say AJ is excellence and this is the dysfunction his organization operates under. That's where I feel gaslit. They say we're going to win parades. Well, you know what you need to do to win parades? You need to have clear, focused leadership. And that's where the gaslighting is. We're stoked our owner has invested into the team. We worry about his health. But it's a clusterfuck. It's a shit show. And it's not going to get better replacing your goddamn manager.
Yeah, I wanted to read the quote specifically because, Chris, you're right. Like, reading it back, he never specifically says Melvin's the manager in 2024. The quote is, I think those are all kind of personal matters and private matters, Preller said in early October when asked if the Padres would allow Melvin to pursue other job opportunities. Quote, we never really comment on those in terms of other clubs and interest in any of our employees. With Bob, he's under contract. He's our manager. I think we're both excited going forward into the offseason. End quote. That's what he said. Okay, so that was a nothing statement. And you're absolutely right, Chris, on what you just said about the gaslighting from, I when I say Seidler, I'm not saying, because again, it's like, we have no idea what's going on with Peter Seidler. Like, we hope that he's healthy. We hope that everything's good. Let's just say generally ownership. We said months ago on this show that so long as AJ Preller is excellence and is the model for under which this organization is built, this organization not only has an AJ Preller problem, they have an ownership problem because it's so, I mean, even just reading through the comments on the Athletic articles, because the Athletic articles are co-written by Dennis Lin and Andrew Baggerly, who's the beat writer for the Giants. And so there's a lot of Giants fans in the comments. And it's a lot of people that are like, hey, would be stoked for Bob Melvin. What's going on in San Diego with AJ Preller? Why do they seem so like tied to him? And I can't fucking tell you what it is. Like, I can't tell you what I mean, like, the thing about when Kim Ng left the Marlins last week, that was something we, obviously we don't need to talk about that because she's not coming here. That's pretty clear. But when you compare the tenures of AJ Preller and Kim Ng took a really lucky team to the playoffs. Like, run that team back. I don't think they make the playoffs next year. But if you read the articles that were published in the, leading up to the postseason around, like, from quotes from Skip Schumacher and other people like working for Kim Ng, they all thought she was amazing. And in terms of track record, you could argue about Preller or Kim Ng. I don't think that she is like a salve of like end all be all. She's like this amazing general manager that's going to come in and save things. But just from like those articles about Preller, no one ever talks about AJ Preller like that. They say he's a grinder and that, he's the hardest working guy in baseball. But it always comes with the caveat of it's an incredibly toxic work environment. And so I just don't understand like what this organization is doing to stick with this guy. Like what is it? Like, genuinely, do either of you guys know?
I was going to speculate pictures, compromising pictures.
Well, here's the thing. The logic is broken down. And seeing as we're talking about people's quotes, I want to go back to the most ballyhooed quote almost of Peter Seidler's tenure. I mean, I think it's almost overtaken Slaying the Dragon, which was his July 2nd interview with Kevin Acee in Cincinnati, watching the club in Cincinnati and expressing, confidence that the season would turn out well and that things would turn out well and that he had faith in everybody. And this is what he said, quote, I'm not afraid to make changes. I never have been, but I really value stability. And when I know the person as well and the skill set as well as I know AJ and Eric Grupner, AJ Preller, they're not going anywhere, period. I believe in stability. It is something that is undervalued, generally speaking, in organizations and maybe particularly in sports franchises. But I'm not for mediocre stability. I'm for excellence. And to me, AJ is excellence. The logic of this statement has completely broken down because AJ Preller is incapable of creating and maintaining stability. Under AJ Preller, the manager changes on average every 2 years of his tenure. Under AJ Preller, there has been, Dennis Lin keeps the count, so 26, 27, 28, 29 coaches over the course of 9 years. Oh, well, that's, sure, when you change managers, you change coaches. The front office has undergone significant change with people going in and out. And it's increasingly just Preller, Stein, and the man who I would love to know the story of, Fred Ullman Jr., who was there as Kevin Towers' assistant 20 years ago and is still the assistant to AJ Preller today, and how my man, Fred Ullman Jr., has made it all the way through. I would love to know. I got back 2000 to 2003. I used to be able to talk to him a lot when we were covering the team on a regular basis. Like he's still there, but he's like that. And Don Tricker, other than this increasingly small group of what you'd have to say would be either adherents to AJ or, his inner circle, whatever.
Dwight's to his Michael Scott.
Everyone else changes. If you
and
can't keep
that's
Bob
not
Melvin,
even talking about the roster, Craig. Look at the roster, like with trade deadlines, blowing it up in 2020. There's no stability there.
No, there's going to be stability, baby. That left side of the infield is going to be there until we're maybe dead. I'm not sure our country outlives the left side of this infield's guaranteed contracts, but nonetheless, democracy's on the block first.
We won't have to pay off that left side of the infield because the polar ice caps will have melted and flooded Petco Park by the time things are done.
And the Mesa's beachfront property is where I will be living, baby. One step ahead all the time. But yeah, that's the bottom line to me.
It shows that Peter Seidler, he doesn't value stability. He values familiarity. They're different friggin' things.
Or he's unplugged. I think what you were talking about, Raphie, is I'm sorry to say, feeling like the way more likely, like there is a power void right now. Like there's an emptiness. All we got was a statement. Peter Seidler's never answered a question. Since July 2nd, he hasn't answered a question.
Yeah.
That's
maybe he can't. I don't know.
Rare.
I mean, again, it's like, I don't know if it's life imitating art, but it does feel a little bit like anytime in succession that Logan got incapacitated and all the little corporate skullfuckers were running around and Kendall's doing his play and then the kids are doing their other stuff. And like AJ feels kind of like Kendall. Like, I'm not going to lie. Like, it's really like he is Peter Seidler's number one boy. And he is just continues to get bailed out and bailed out and bailed out. And we're going to do things his way. And he knows best. And meanwhile, all the other people running around him are trying to give their narrative to sources and to journalists and everything like that to spin their side of the story. And it's a leaky ship with no rudder. And that is like, these guys are supposed to contend for a title next year? Like, genuinely. Like, I mean, the vibes are, I think, the number one job of a manager at this point. Like, so much of the game is, played out on a computer, in spreadsheets, like whatever you want to say, aside from the playoffs, when I think managers really do have an outsized effect in the game, really the manager's there just to control vibes. And who is going to step in and even if it's Ryan Flaherty, okay, like who is like Preller's, like who's Preller's number one boy, handpicked guy, are the players going to respect him? Genuinely. No. No.
I don't think it's going to be him, by the way. I think it's going to be Mike Schilt.
Are the players going to respect Mike Schilt?
Why wouldn't they?
Like
he's been around. He's a former manager of the year. So we've already used that as a badge of courage. He's been, according to all these, and if you read the Lynn, I know you guys did, you read the Lynn thing, like he's been around, he's got like daily interactions with, why has he been around? I mean, that's another thing. Is that part of why Bob Melvin was not happy? Is that there was another former manager that like kept poking his head into his office every day going, hey, by the way, I was just talking to Jake and he said that. And he's like, why the fuck are you talking to Jake? Like, this is my team. Get out of here, former Cardinals manager. Go mess around in El Paso or something.
It seems like Mike Schilt got fired and Ollie Marmol replaced in a very similar dynamic. You know what I mean? Yeah, that Mike Schilt was clashing with the front office. The Cardinals are a pretty analytical organization, and they're not gonna go along with it. So Ollie Marmol comes in. Ollie Marmol has an absolute turd of a season, gets a massive vote of confidence with Yadi Molina waiting in the wings. Like, come on, it's as clear as it can possibly be who should be running that team. But for whatever reason, they've got their guy in the chair, so they're not gonna get off of it.
All right. I've got levels on this. You said we're an unserious organization, Raphie, and I can't agree more. If the Padres were a serious organization, AJ Preller would have been let go the Monday morning after the season ended.
Mm-hmm.
Because the club would have already back-channeled, done their homework, understood that the Kim Ng situation was coming to a head, and they would have had a situation in place to see Preller out the door and see Kim Ng into the door as the president of baseball operations for the San Diego Padres. And then, she could decide whether she wanted to hire a general manager or didn't want to hire a general manager. Remember, the Marlins situation was the opposite. She was the general manager, and they were going to hire a president of baseball operations above her.
Did you see the Rosenthal reporting on this, that it was just the Marlins owner getting like one voice from inside the organization, like his own little worm tongue telling him, she's not doing that good. So he fires her, and then the whole organization goes, why is this happening?
Right.
Yeah.
So a serious Padres organization would have had that plan in place since August, since the team had collapsed, when that would have been the final straw. Like, we've given you all this rope. We gave you the chance to even double down and buy on the margins on this club, and we're not going to make the playoffs, and this is the most consequential year in club history, and we just can't let this continue. We've got a plan. We've worked on it. We've back-channeled it. We've handled everything, and we roll through it, right? Now, a semi-serious, haphazard, disorganized, but earnest, heart in the right place organization would fire AJ Preller now.
Mm-hmm.
It's so easy. Like, this is the easiest time.
You didn't make it work.
Yeah.
We wanted the leadership team to come back together. We value stability. You couldn't make it work. So I'm sorry. You got to go. Bob's going. You got to go too. That's it. And now, hat in hand, we'd wiggle over to Kim Ng and be like, hey, what do you think about jumping into our crazy jalopy, which is run crazy and bad, but did you notice the weather's almost as good as where you were? Like, that's what a semi-serious like a poorly run semi-serious organization would be like. Oh, Seidler, come to your senses. Or Grupner goes, that's it, and they make the move now, and it looks bad. But you make the move now. But we're not going to do either of those things. Instead, we're reading the think pieces about how, we might save $2.5 million.
I couldn't believe that.
Jesus.
Right?
We're changing managers because of debt reduction.
Is this Dennis Lynn's attempt to get back in the good graces by putting the best possible framing on this clusterfuck possible?
I guarantee you that he's just parroting something from someone inside the organization. And Craig, I want to go back to what you were just saying about like in a serious organization, like we would have done this, or a semi-serious organization, we would have done that. But my question is like, who is the we in this situation? Because in my mind, it's Peter Seidler, and Peter Seidler is clearly incapacitated at this point. So, and I genuinely think that that's where this is coming from. This is like the act of God, 1% outcome, where like actually like in this situation, like it's been made a lot worse because there is no unifying central direction at the heart of this. We are completely in chaos. Like, and I don't see any way unless like genuinely like unless there's a change in the chairman position, or Peter Seidler recovers to the point where he can now be outward facing once again. I don't see this changing. Like genuinely, like
they need a BDD, like in charge of it all. And I agree with you, Raphie. Like Peter Seidler was that. He can't be that right now. He hasn't been able to be that for some time because that statement that he wrote that came out at the end didn't just happen. We know dude traveled with the team for a lot in 2022. He did a little bit this year, and then he went away. And he went away because he couldn't friggin' do it. You know, that's the part of being the owner that he liked best, and he couldn't do it. So now he's stuck with the stuff that he likes least, which is have to fire people he likes, and he can't physically do it. So are they going to empower somebody? Is he going to empower somebody to be able to do it for him? It's his team. I don't know why he would. I think he's going to try to get better. And until then, we're going to be stuck in the trough, man.
Yeah,
go ahead, Ray. Sorry.
Really quickly, Craig, just because you mentioned something about like if this was a semi-serious organization and like if it would look bad if they fired Preller at this point, I don't necessarily know if I agree, because I actually don't think it would look that bad, because I could see Seidler as someone who empowers the people who work for him, say, hey, you and Bob have a mutually assured fate. If you can work it out with Bob, I will let you guys as men figure this out as fucking adults. You know what I mean? And it's clear that they can't do that. It's like, okay, you can't do this one thing, then you cannot lead this organization. So there's the door. And like, I think that that's actually like a decent, like, hey, I let my guys figure things out until it's absolutely clear they can't. But as we've established, they won't even do that.
Raphie, that's why I say it's the easiest time possible. Like, now would be it. You know, and that also just the timing of the season. You're going to have all the candidates for both positions wanting to come to San Diego ostensibly. You know, if they can run the ship as GM, president of operations, it's an appealing job. The owner's not too meddlesome, to the best of our knowledge. And then you get to hire your manager, and you get the whole roster of available candidates, which is robust.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree. When I say, competent to semi-serious, it's more of just like, it's a reactive move now. It's like 9 years didn't get you there, but now this gets you there. You should have been there before. And I think cutthroat, serious, C-suite level people make those types of decisions, and they move fast, and they don't just react. It's sloppy. Doing it this way is just sloppy, but it's fine if you get to the right spot. Problem is now we're in the wrong spot. We're in the spot where, okay, cool. Who could AJ Preller even possibly hire to be the manager of the Padres? We know it's going to be one of these guys because, I think I said it in a moment, whether it was on Discord or on the show, I don't remember, but like, if you had before as a thought experiment been like, okay, you got to have a new manager next year. You've got the candidates who are available. We're not going to conjure the brilliant 34-year-old hitting coach out of nowhere that I don't know. Like, it'd be Showalter. Because like the Marty Schottenheimer of baseball that he is, everywhere he goes the first year, everything is tightened up. And everywhere he goes the first year, everyone buys in. And it's that 100-win season. It's that, it's that giant leap type season where everyone plays together. And then, maybe he F's it up in the playoffs. But you know what? The playoffs are stupid and no one should care. It's tough. And I would do my point-by-point rebuttal of HJ's thing earlier on Gwintelligence, but I just want you to know that that's also a show that exists, and it's great.
And they don't have ads, by the way.
It's ad free.
It's completely ad free. So if you don't like ads, it's there.
They are
It is definitely not 100%
amateurs.
nonsense free, but neither are we.
Complete amateurs in that they do it for the love of the.
And we respect that. Really quickly about Buck, by the way. Another big point. Your guy, your clubhouse guy, Manny Machado, fucking loves Buck Showalter.
Buck.
Absolutely loves Buck and has said in the past that he would love to have him manage. And if you talk about like, whether it's, Kevin Acee talking about the manager or general manager or player having, setting the tone, that would be a unified leadership, from an on-field, off-field standpoint.
But boys, is Buck going to take this job?
No chance.
No, he's not.
No.
0 chance. Would
Zero.
Joe Girardi take the job?
No. I'd hope not. I wouldn't want him.
I'm
He's
not
a
saying.
bad
I'm
manager.
just saying the type of personality. I'm not advocating.
Right.
For it.
Here's another one that was on that list. Don Mattingly. You think
Don
Don
Mattingly?
Mattingly's
No
going to
way.
put up with this shit?
No way.
Are
But
you
Phil
kidding me?
Mattingly worked for AJ Preller at one
Yeah,
point.
yeah.
So we've got our little like corkboard with red string, like tying the pieces
Yeah.
together, chain smoking. Yeah.
Yeah. There's nobody who has a built-up major league career and ego at this point is going to work for AJ Preller. Why does Mike Schilt work with one-time manager of the year in his career? Because he managed 4 years in one market and then he hasn't done it. Like he's been bumping around the Padres system since.
And he's just been working with AJ. Like he would
Angling
take the
for this job.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's why he's going to get the job to me, is because Flaherty could still be the bench coach for Mike Schilt and then, or the offensive coordinator or whatever stupid ass terms they're putting out there. I love offensive coordinator for baseball. Here's my plan. Score more runs. I think we should get more guys on base and score them. And that's my coordination of offensive strategy for baseball.
Well, here's the other thing with Schilt, by the way. He, much like AJ, started as a scout. Like that's his background. He worked his way through the St. Louis Cardinals organization for almost 2 decades before he got to the major league roster. And he was a scout he was an area scout in North Carolina, South Carolina, and Virginia. So, I mean, it doesn't surprise me like why they might mesh together in some ways. I'm sure philosophically they see a lot of things the same way. But that also doesn't inspire me. You know what I mean? It doesn't inspire me. You think it's going to inspire fucking Juan Soto or Fernando Tatis Jr.? Come on.
Yeah, Mike Schilt's one of those guys who says, hey, let me tell you, anytime you have a chance to be on a major league ball field for batting practice, you need to be thankful. Be thankful that you're there. Your calls are next.
Hey, let me tell you, I already know a coach who might be interested in managing the Padres, okay?
Hey, so if you got a spot on that staff, you need somebody who can really relate to the players
and get you a good deal on a new Ford. I mean,
we're not going to do it. We're going to not do it the old-fashioned way. Try to get the most hits or score the most runs, but instead with an eye for customer service. Look, I'm having a hard time just wrapping my head around this because this feels like, as you guys said, very succinct, like a vacuum in power, like a situation where the leader is out of the house, or in my mind is only speaking through like one tin little receiver, like just like Seidler here. Keep going. Guns ahead. Keep blazing. Seidler out. And you never actually see him. And so here we are. Melvin gone. Preller here. Nothing changes. The very scenario that all three of us swore, pitchforks, riot gear, head down 19 Tony Gwynn Drive, gather, watch party is to burn the place down. And it's here. It's arrived. It's happening. There's nothing to be done. Preller's going to run this. They're not going to be serious. Preller's going to run this team, and the best we can do is root for him to have a good year next year and further his job security by finally delivering us a winner.
I might sound foolish, but or maybe I'm just optimist. I refuse to believe that that's our fate. The World Series hasn't even happened yet. There is some sense to come to amongst the people running this club. Like, look at the entire track record. Don't look at 2022 in a vacuum. Don't look at 2020 in a vacuum, because you can see the consequences for 2020's success down the road in 2021 and 2023. Like, I can't, I know you're probably right. I know that the evidence of what the club has said, AJ's excellence, all points to us having AJ and Mike Schilt running things next year. And, of course, I'm going to root for the team. Of course. Like, I've done it every single year. I've been a coherent human being. But I'm just going to hope that there's, somebody sees the damn iceberg, that it's going to hit us eventually, unless there's a turn, unless there's a pivot. And it's so easy with the options available to them right now in this offseason. And it's so easy with the clear dysfunction that everybody sees. I know you're probably right, Craig. And I'm seeing it everywhere, that it's almost fated, as we've pointed out, that this is the chaos conclusion, the rightful, what happens to Padres fans, the next chapter in the long saga of San Diego suffering. But I hope it's not, man. It is so easy to do what we all know how to fix shit in 2023. You friggin' unplug it. You wait a minute and then you plug it back in. And for unplugging the machine, that means wiping the people in charge that means wiping the slate of the leadership of the baseball operations department.
Yeah, I'm a little scared, Raphie. And the reason I am is because now we're getting into some angles and some alleyways that we have to admit are much stronger possibilities. I mean, when you think debt reduction and we got to reduce the payroll, well, one thing that you could do if you're a desperate general manager who's about to hire his fifth manager and maybe is put on notice by somebody, hey, you're on thin ice, kid. Like, trade away the prospect depth that is just built back to the point that we've got, again, a potential path to sustainability, and dump it all for a year of Corbin Burns or a year of this or a year of that, and take us into another double down situation that makes 2027 and beyond look really bad.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what we were worried about at the trade deadline, because
Correct.
we actually thought that AJ Preller's job was at risk at that time. So we were like, "Well, what's the crazy madman shit he's gonna do this time around?" And he did end up making some poor trades, but they weren't, I would say timeline altering trades, to the point where he's truly kneecapping future success. But I think that's, if I'm going to take the glass half full standpoint, maybe we're operating under a World Series. Major news is announced after that sort of embargo. I just don't see it. Yeah. My question is, like, if this season, 2023, like you said, the most anticipated quote unquote consequential season in franchise history, doesn't matter, what does? Genuinely.
There it is.
What matters?
If you've disappointed more fans in person than you ever have in your franchise history, like, what else is going to do it to you?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we had 2 playoff appearances in 3 years, and then another, winning season, and we love our fans and great fans, and over 3 million fans. You might have heard came out to see, and you might have heard in September, team really caught fire, won 20 games, really one of the best months in the franchise's history. So, I know we're going to look to build on that. And, got some great players coming back. Jake Cronenworth coming back, and Manny Machado, and Juan Soto, and Yu Darvish, and we really believe in these. Joe Musgrove, these are character players. Xander Bogaerts, these are players with high character and really high results, and we expect to score a lot of runs and win a lot of games. End scene. How did I do? Was that was
triggering in its accuracy.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. That's what we're gonna hear. That's gonna be friggin' March if they don't do something.
All right, let me turn it a direction. Let me turn it. Let's do Pimp Lord Corner for just a second. Because I rarely use the stupid Musk site Twitter. I still call it Twitter. I know it's X. And I did put up just a short tweet yesterday after seeing this, basically saying what I said earlier in terms of this guy can't have a stable organization. He doesn't promote organizational stability. And Pimp Lord on Twitter, who's been advocating for Bob Melvin to be fired for 2 years, basically, was just like, just be happy it happened or something like that, like hooray. And there's a couple other people like, well, Bob Melvin's not a good manager, so you should be happy he's going to the Giants because he's just a mediocre manager. So I want to just explore that for just a second. All right. We know Bob Melvin's a 3-time manager of the year. And we know that he did great things with some pretty mediocre A's teams, right? Some A's teams that were kind of, scotch taped together and gotten to win 98 games and go to the playoffs and lose in the playoffs. Just fine. Everyone loses in the playoffs. In San Diego, Bob Melvin in 2 years, 89 games, kind of a stormy ride last year. Wasn't exactly smooth sailing for the good ship Padres. Remember the deep lull in August, the get their shit together end of the season to get to 89 wins. And then, Trent Grisham hit a couple home runs. That's like, it's like hitting a 10-team parlay in Vegas. Like, it's just not something you can count on.
It's baseball.
Sorry. Yeah, it's baseball. This year,
America's greatest hitter, Craig.
I'll never forget. This year, this is one of the most disappointing, if not the most disappointing seasons in Padres history.
The most. No, we can stamp that, bro. The most disappointing season, undoubtedly.
He was the manager for this team. The team never clicked until everything was gone. He fired his bullet in May, and it didn't work. We talked about this, right? The May 10th game.
Minnesota.
And a day later, he fires the bullet. They lose the next 3 games. No one responded. Anytime he cracked the whip, the response was to lose the next game.
And his criticisms got more pointed as the year went on.
There's some who said they felt he was a little checked out in September as the team was winning. Like that he was kind of a little, okay, well, this is just the way it is. Can we substantively say that Bob Melvin did a great job as such a great job as Padres manager that we should be necessarily sure that the next guy in is going to do a worse job than Bob Melvin did?
No.
Chris, do you want to go first?
No, we can't. We're not in the building. We haven't seen who's making these decisions in game. All we know from a myriad of reporting is that there was dysfunction and different opinions between how the game should be run, between how lineups should be put together. And so, no, we can't. But I think we can substantially say that he was handicapped by the roster he was given.
Sure. I couldn't agree more. Was he a particularly skillful? Like, what was the thing that Bob Melvin did best? We've got 2 years of data. What was the thing that Bob Melvin did best as Padres manager?
Listen, I think you can poll 1,000 baseball fans across America, and not one of them would say that they're happy with the way that their manager managed their bullpen. Like, I don't think anyone is ever happy with bullpen management because there's always the woulda, coulda, shoulda, hindsight view of it. Now, there are some people who would say he stuck with his guys too long. And there are certainly a multitude of instances that we can point to this season and last season when he left guys out there that clearly, and had guys up in the bullpen. I'm just thinking in my mind, because we've talked about it recently, the Waldron game when he had Barlow up and he left him out there and Pham hit that home run. And that ended up being the deciding factor in us not making the playoffs amongst many, many, many other factors. But he knew that in baseball, you play a 162 game marathon season. And I think the way that he managed his guys, if you can look at any specific instance and point to the flaws in it, but contrasting it with Jace Tingler in 2021, who had the quickest hook in Major League Baseball, and I think starters were throwing 4 2/3 on average. And then what happened in August? Our bullpen fucking collapsed because they were completely gassed. I think you can make an argument that Bob had a steadiness to him, that I think, whether or not you could say that he rose to the moment. I don't know that a guy like, okay, let's just say Ryan Flaherty, like a first-time manager, is going to have that same sort of steadiness. I just don't know that he will. And that same, I don't know, like experience, gumption, whatever you want to say, Chris.
Bob gave the team credibility.
Yeah.
Like when he came in, a few months after he came in, the biggest star on the team crashed his motorcycle. Then a few months later, he got suspended for steroids. Within all that, there wasn't panic. There never was a moment of, oh my goodness, what is happening here? Because Bob was there. And you talk about a manager's job as being vibes control. Yes, that's within the clubhouse, certainly. And that's the thing that we can't really speak on as authorities. But it's also vibes management within the fan base and within the reporting and the media. And that's what I think Bob did well. Like, we always kind of had a feeling that there was an adult in the room in the clubhouse. And, people talk about there being no accountability. I don't know what that means when you have players making $300 million and a GM breathing down your neck telling you how to do your job. I don't know what accountability means, how you hold players accountable. But I do think that he set up guys for success. I think we saw veterans kind of flourish and not, completely break down when they struggled under him. Xander Bogaerts wound up having a good year after just playing poorly with an injury. Like, I just thought he gave credibility, and Jace Tingler didn't have that. And it's hard to say otherwise because we're just not friggin' there, and the results weren't that good.
Well, Chris, I couldn't agree with you more. And I know I opened up Pimp Lord Corner here by asking the questions, but I was doing it Tucker Carlson style. Like I cynically didn't believe in any of the answers to the question, or in the questions I was asking, in and of themselves. I'm currently watching Big Brother. Why? Because Raphie's show hasn't come out yet. Like, just, but this season has a true reality legend, Cerie Fields, playing in the Big Brother house. She appeared 4 times on Survivor. She's the best Survivor player to never win. She appeared on the first season of The Traitors and spun circles around everyone and won a very difficult game, a very difficult social game. And now she's on Big Brother, which is, a social game that lasts forever. And you have to be in the house 100 days. And it's ridiculous. And like, Cerie is still there with 7 people left. And all the time watching her, she's like basically doing the Donald Glover, like, I'm too old for this shit. Like, why do I have to be in this mess? I'm too good
Glover.
for this. I'm sorry, Danny Glover. Did I say Donald Glover?
You did. You said you childish Gambino.
This is America.
I do the same thing. That's why I was ready for it.
Thank you. Danny Glover. It's Lethal Weapon. I'm too old for this shit. Like, she's running circles around these people that she's so much on a higher level than, because she's stuck in the shithouse. And so she's got to do the shithouse things, and so she has to wear a superhero costume every time that an announcer barks. Like, well, she has to do that, but she's like, I'm too old for this shit. And I feel like that's what we're going to find out after the fact was Bob Melvin in San Diego, holding something together that had no business being held together. and spending the whole time going, I'm too old for this shit. And just get me out of here. Like, I can do this, but why would I want to? You know, when someone else could give me a way more peaceful environment where I could do what I want to do the way I want to do it. And if Bob Melvin magic never took in San Diego, I don't think he was given the ripe earth for those seeds to grow. I don't. I think he was put into a crazy situation from day one. And through that, a team filled with zillionaire egos snuck its way through last year. And this year, importantly, never gave up on each other. Like, for all the stuff that we heard and all of these expose articles, it's not players turning on players. Like, they hung together. Oh, Bogaerts doesn't like Manny. They were sitting on the plane next to each other, you know, and they kept going right to the end of the year. Manny had a bad elbow. He played right to the day that they got eliminated. He played through. So who's to say that with Schilt or Flaherty or Tingler or Murphy or Green or any of the other Preller lackeys that each of the last 2 seasons wouldn't have gone to shit too? You know, far worse than it did. If we're going to say we don't know what Bob couldn't do well, we also don't know how many things that he prevented from happening. It's the unknown unknowns here that are starting to drive this franchise crazy. We don't know when we'll know whether Peter Seidler has influence anymore, or where it is, or what Grupner is, or where Melvin's power dynamic left. And we're never going to get an answer because the guy in charge does a mumble mouth routine every single time. He's, as you said, a lawyer that is very gifted at, he's not really a lawyer, but he has that lawyerly gift of only speaking strategically and never speaking honestly. So I don't know, man. Like, I'm really, really bummed. Bob Melvin was probably, since Bochy, the only manager that I really felt like we had a pretty fucking competent guy in charge. And did I enjoy his pitching situations? No. Do I think that he trusted Nick Martinez to a level that maybe cost this team the season this year? Yeah, I kind of do. I think there was a point in the summer that he could have said, you know what? Maybe Nick Martinez isn't my highest leverage reliever. maybe I've got another alternative in the can, and maybe that would have worked out. But as it is, we're in this spot, and if they're not going to fire Preller tomorrow and go hard chase Kim Eng or Heimblum or someone else, we're left picking up the pieces and figuring out how this thing can possibly be viable next year. And you know how it is? By Tatis and Bogaerts and Machado hitting.
I just want to point out that this club is still run pretty well in one avenue of it. Like, the Petco Park experience and the fan experience is still pretty solid. And that means Eric Grupner knows how to do his damn job, and you've got a big boy in the room. Save us, Eric Grupner.
But also,
Pull the
if
fire
there's
alarm.
anything like from the unknown unknowns, I would say it's a known unknown about Seidler and, you know, if he has pull or not, because I think it's clear that he does have pull, and that's why nothing's happening. Because if it were Grupner, Preller would be gone already. You know what I mean? Like, Craig, you've like pretty clearly identified that Grupner is one of Kevin Acey's primary sources. And a lot of the information that's about the dysfunction of the front office has likely come from Eric Grupner, if that is true. So he would be gone by now. So I don't think Eric Grupner has that sway. I think it really is like,
he could say, I'm sick of this, and there's the 29 other there's 29 other clubs out there that I could go kick ass in. There's other teams building ballparks. You know, I have other avenues to advance my career as well. You know, I don't know the guy. I know nothing about it. I'm just begging for an adult in the room, guys. That's all it is. Like, I'm just begging for clear leadership, and there's no sign it's coming. And this latest embarrassment, because that's what this is. It's embarrassing to us fans. I don't take this friggin' hat off. I haven't taken this hat off through darker times than this. But guess what I heard about on the lines today? what's going on? And I don't have an answer. And they need to provide those. And until they do, it's going to be a dark, confusing off season.
Here's the literal last thing I have to say on this. The Giants called the Padres to ask permission to interview Bob Melvin for their managerial position. Nobody's calling the Padres asking for permission to interview AJ Preller for shit. Like, nobody, if AJ Preller was such a hot commodity, which is one of those things, it's the same classic thing that leaves you in a bad relationship too long, right? The fear of the thing outside being worse than the pretty bad thing that's inside. You're like, well, if we let this kind of bad thing out, what if something worse comes in? But think about how baseball works. If AJ Preller was such a young, up-and-coming, high-rising, fast-flying executive that had baseball taken by storm, then New York would have wanted him to be their general manager years ago. Either one of the big money clubs, or Chicago, or St. Louis, or Atlanta, or Toronto. Just any big money club that was looking for direction would have. But you know what? Alex Anthopoulos is the guy who's gone from Toronto to Atlanta and has made moves. AJ Preller hasn't gone anywhere. No one's been beating down the Padres' door. There's never been one rumor in 9 years. Well, look out. AJ Preller might be on the move. He's got a hot opportunity in Seattle that he'd like to consider. Like, this is a snooker job, man. This is the Lord of No Rings.
It's a great point, Craig.
And no one's coming for him. Like, oh no, if we let AJ Preller go, then AJ Preller will be an advanced scout for someone in a year, where and as far away from the power structure as possible. Bob Melvin's going to be managing against us next year. And he said he couldn't wait for spring training. And I think it's for sure true now. Padres Hot Tub. Please let it be better next time.